Well, good Friday morning, friends. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here and let's wake up the football gods. Hope everybody is doing great this morning. It's the weekend. Last night we actually had a great game on Amazon Prime. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to streaming. A lot of people, we did a live stream last night during the game, which I'm glad because it was actually a really good game. And it's kind of crazy because that game was the tale of mistakes that were made but did not end up hurting a team. Quite frankly, Justin Herbert threw a lot of yards, but was let down by fatigue. My last night's video, unfortunately, I forgot to make it live till I woke up this morning at 6 o'clock. But Jimmy Johnson quoted Patton, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all." And this is where you look at the NFL teams where you can tell guys are not in shape. You can see guys are winded like they haven't been before. And last night, I'm not sure what the receiver is, number 7. You could see he was like, I need a break. And he was out there, and Joe Burrow, there in the goal line, is like looking to him, and he just kind of wobbles a little bit to the left, and he throws the pass where he had been, and it ends up being a pick six. That ends up being the difference in the game. On the flip side, Pat Mahomes had 3 interceptions that were literally just there. One was actually overturned because the ball touched the ground, but a couple of ones that should have been pick sixes. He was actually awful last night in comparison to the way he played last week against the Cardinals. You know, you looked at it and said, oh man, he's ready for another MVP season. Then you looked at it last night and it was like, damn, he was lucky that he wasn't picked off and just gotten blown out of the game. But that's the thing about football is it's a couple of plays here and there that make all the difference in things. And it could have been that the Chargers defense could have overcome that game and ended up being the difference maker, but unfortunately they didn't make the plays. Again, the game was streamed on Amazon. So Amazon's paying $1 billion to the NFL just for Thursday night games. $1 billion for Thursday night games. And you can see that Amazon has put a whole lot of money in the telecast, the people that are doing it. They did a good job with it, but this means now that you got to have an Amazon Prime account to watch the games. And this also sets the idea of the first shots of the NFL literally going to becoming a pay-per-view or a streaming platform. And we still don't have word yet on the Sunday ticket for next year. Currently, I've got the satellite dish on my roof that, I've got the Sunday ticket, and the only time that dish gets used is come Sunday because I can't figure out all the channels and stuff on there and the local stuff. I've got the Verizon cable for my house because I love the internet that I have. It's really fast and all that, and I don't want satellite internet not being able to broadcast. So I literally have DirecTV just for Sundays and have to have it for 2 years. And thank God this will be the end of it. This will be the end of it after this season because somebody's going to be streaming it, be it Apple. I'm kind of hoping that Google comes back through because it looked like Apple was going to have it, but then Google said, hey, wait a minute, we want to be able to put it on YouTube. I'm praying that it ends up being Google because I don't have an Apple device. I'm anti-Apple. I don't want to have an Apple account. I just don't. So unfortunately, the NFL is basically taking us, the fans, upside down and shaking every cent out of our wallets and every cent out of us for football. But be that as it may, it's kind of where everything's going. Cable TV is dying, and the NFL recognizes that as well. So we'll see what the response is from the masses and things like that, what the actually viewership was on it. Did it end up picking up more because it was on Amazon, it could be streamed, or did that actually hurt because a lot of people did not have Amazon accounts? Don't know. But either way, the NFL will get paid. For our Cowboys, what was interesting for me was seeing Dak Prescott yesterday at practice, because he was throwing at practice. He was throwing with his left hand. Looking, and this is just a thought here, okay? I don't have any research on this or anything on that one way or the other. But looking at Dak Prescott, because when he first saw it, the picture looked reversed. And so for a second there, it was like, was he throwing with his right hand? I was like, I know it wasn't a very powerful throw, but looking at it, if you look at the video and slow it down, you can see the brace that's on his hand. Okay, see, back in my day, we used to have plaster Paris cast that would mobilize everything. But this thing is very, very small. And it's like basically a strap that's right here with like a band or probably got a piece of metal in there, and that goes to the wrist to immobilize this part of the thumb. What that tells me, and again, I'm not a doctor, I don't play one here on YouTube, but my thinking is this, and this may actually be a good thing, that the break on the thumb is somewhere down in here. They put a plate and the screws in here. And why do I think that that's good? Because that's a bigger piece of the bone. If it were, say, fractured up in here or up at the tip, I think it might be harder because of the healing that would have to go in here. When you cut, I know from my knee, when they cut across the knee and end up, going into it, because there's so much flexion in that joint, that scar ends up getting a lot of scar tissue on it. I still, to this day, have a ridge, from the knee surgery I had in 1995 that's on there. That's scar tissue. If the break were up in here someplace and they went in here, that's at a point where you are really at a mesh point for your thumb. Thinking down in here is probably where they went ahead and did the surgery. It's a bigger piece of the bone with that plate. And see, that means that there's not damage, hopefully, to the upper part of your thumb in here where you actually grip the football. Because your thumb, the reality is this part of the thumb does not move as much as the rest of this does. So that may actually be a good thing in healing. I don't know. And if somebody is a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon, or a hand surgeon, I would love to talk to you about that. But for me, that seems like that's good news, because that means then this part of the thumb is okay. It's broken down here in a bigger portion of it. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe that's where the optimism is on the break. So here's where we are. We take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, understand something. What you did last year means nothing this year, because teams change, the philosophies change, players come and go. And what happens typically with the team that loses in the Super Bowl is they take a step back. Sometimes they end up being that they had a softer schedule, they caught fire at the right time, they got some breaks, they go to the Super Bowl, but then we anoint them as a great team. And I'm not saying that what Cincinnati did was not great. It was. They went to the Super Bowl, something we have not done in forever, so I can't take that away. But early on, they're playing Pittsburgh, a team that you look at and say, they're kind of rebuilding. I won't look and say that Pittsburgh has a great quarterback in Mitch Trubisky. He's a capable quarterback, but, he's not Aaron Rodgers or something like that, although I think he actually had more yards than Aaron Rodgers did, which is kind of interesting. When we look at the numbers of what happened with the Bengals, who also lost, they had problems with their long snapper, and so they ended up missing field goals after field goals. They should have won at home against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, a team that I feel like is truly an inferior team, a team that's kind of in transition. Though they had great players and like T.J. Watt on the defense, their offense left a lot to be desired. But here's the thing, looking at this, now, looking at the numbers, Joe Burrow passed for 299 yards, had 2 touchdowns. That's good. I mean, that's 2 more touchdowns than we had as a team ourselves. But had 4 interceptions and was sacked 7 times. Now, understand that Cincinnati spent a boatload of money to fix their offensive line, and probably this is still a transition period of when they're going to start getting together. I still believe that the whole thing of not practicing and not going full go is a mistake in the NFL, but, be that as it may, this is the way it is. So it takes time for guys to become cohesive. I believe that as bad as our wide receivers were, they'll get better as time goes on. Most of these guys were really playing for the first time or not far beyond their first time. They will get better as well as the team. I'm not ready to hit the complete panic button on the team right now. We've gone through our emotions of how bad we looked that first game, but Green Bay looked terrible last year, their first game, and ended up, being the #1 seed. So I'm not saying we're going to be the #1 seed, but it's too early to panic after one game. I got people saying we should take the rest of the year and come on, stop that. Just stop it. So there's opportunities here. It could have been that the Chargers last night blew out Kansas City on the road had their defense been able to hold on to a couple of these interceptions. And seeing that Joe Burrow is still getting jacked up, who had a 69 quarterback rating against the Steelers, I believe that we can do something similar to what the Steelers did, if not more so. If our defense gets in there, that will give us a chance. It wasn't like, Cincinnati scored, a ton of points. They scored 20 points. If our defense can play well, if our defense can hunt, we got a good chance of this game at home. I'm not ready to give up on it. We'll definitely break this down a little bit more tonight during my live stream, but Cincinnati's got a lot of problems as well, just like a lot of teams. And so let's go to First Take. Cooper Rush can get the Cowboys back on track, according to Dan Orlowski. Yeah. Can he get them back on track? Let's check this out. I haven't heard all this yet, so we'll see.
Really, what I advise them to do is, self-care. Make sure
self-care.
Something as simple as get your rest. I mean, I'm sure all of us have had an operation along the way. And, it takes a couple of days. So, and that's really what he's been focused on. He didn't get a lot of sleep the first night. So, he's in the healing phase, just like we talked about yesterday. So, I mean, he's going to take at least 7 to 10 days before he can do anything. I mean, that's, talking to the medical staff. So, he just needs to heal right now.
All right. Dan Orlowski, styled by Tiffany, back with us. So, with Dak out, what's the Cowboys' best plan to help Cooper Rush get his what?
Before I give you that.
Yes, sir.
They got to stop the penalties, Jay.
Okay.
They have no shot of winning football games with a
Dak or anybody else.
Yeah, the penalties have to stop before we can figure out a plan to give us the chance to win games. They have no shot without that. Number one, put a bunch of big bodies on the football field, multiple tight ends, 3, maybe a 6th offensive lineman, and you just got to say we're going to be a ground and pound offense. We're not going to ask Cooper Rush to even carry this football team or remotely offensively. Put a bunch of big bodies on the field. Let's go play run game and see how many opportunities you can give a player like CeeDee Lamb to get the ball downfield in one-on-one situations. So lean into that ground and pound game and believe that your defense is going to give you the chance, because they're still a good unit, to win some ugly, close football games over the course of maybe 4 or 5 weeks. I would start every single play call with, can I get CeeDee Lamb the football on the perimeter in one-on-one? Then I would go to Tony Pollard. And then I would go to Dalton Schultz, their tight end, and then I would go to Ezekiel Elliott. The reason why I put CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard at the forefront is they at least have explosive playmaking ability. And when you're going to put a bunch of big bodies on the field and play smash mouth football and maybe ugly football games, the ability to go create some plays on your own and be explosive is something that Ezekiel Elliott right now just doesn't have in his game, certainly hasn't shown it. But they don't have a chance. He's
getting 5.2 yards a carry last week.
Unless they get rid of those penalties. Because to say that, you got to be in 2nd and 6, and then you got to be in 3rd and 2 or 3. And you can't be in 2nd and 15 and do that. So Cooper Rush just has to be a guy that's going to hand the football off a ton.
Okay. We're going to see what that happens, Steve.
Again, the breaking news from the world of tennis as another.
Wait a minute. I'm trying to understand if he's watching the same games that I was, Dan Orlovsky, because what I saw was Zeke Elliott actually getting us into 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, actually having explosiveness more than Tony Pollard. Did you actually watch the game? Here's what I want to go through here while I was listening to him for a second. I thought that was going to be longer. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV or anything like that. But here's kind of like what I was talking about here. I'm thinking that with that brace being down in here, that the break is here where it's a bigger piece of bone as opposed to being up in here. If it were up in here where he's really got to grip the ball, that scar tissue, and the healing would be a lot different than this piece right here. And so actually having the plate on here, locking it together, to me says that it's probably, there was a plate and screws, which is key, as opposed to a pin. When you have a pin, that means they have to put the pin in to try and realign the bone. They didn't put a pin in, which is good. The other part of that is being down here where that brace was, that brace being like right in here, that it must be this bone right here that broke or cracked. So that may be good from the standpoint of it can heal a lot better than, say, let me see, where's one of the other pictures here? If it were, this is actually more of a, see, that's more of a compound. See, that's not what you want to see. That one has a big chunk of it. His was a clean fracture, so that's, you know, doing process of elimination. And as opposed to, I thought there was another one in here I wanted to look at. But as opposed to it being this bone here, which is a smaller bone, which is more of where the football is going to have to be gripped and all, that it seems like it would take longer to heal from that situation. But, you know, we'll see what the doctors have to say. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one. I'm just a layman that's kind of trying to put this together and see where the optimism may be for Dak's hand to heal. Tonight, of course, 9 o'clock Eastern, we'll be doing our live stream as we get ready for the Dallas Cowboys to take on the Cincinnati Bengals.